Amazing. Thank you, Alex. And hi to everybody who is here. I can see the sort of attendee numbers keep climbing. So I'll kick off fairly promptly today because I appreciate it's the start of the year and I'm sure your to-do lists are as long as mine. And I'm not quite sure how on earth we've got to the 12th of January already. So just to let you know, I'm going to be presenting to you this way, but every now and again, if I move this way, it's because I have two screens. So I'm not ignoring you. This is just the way that my presentation is going to be slightly split. But I'm here with you today to talk about not the what, but the how that determines successful outcomes. We spend a lot of time in university learning about what we need to do, learning about what's going on in the body, learning about what protocols we need to put in place. But there's very little touch on how do we actually help our clients or our patients, depending on your qualification, to adopt what we want them to do. And that comes with a completely different set of skills. And they're known as coaching skills, or they're also known as behavioural change support skills. And that's what I'm going to take you through today. So I'll give a little intro to myself. Let me make sure I can, there we go. So before I intro myself, just to chat through today's conversation, we will talk about what on earth this coaching approach is, how is it different from what we already do in clinic and what we already know. I'm going to talk to you as well about change behaviour and the cycle and recycle of change. This is so fundamental. We'll spend a bit of time on this because I think we will think about so many people in our lives and whereabouts they are in this cycle, and it is really important that with each of our clients, we know where they're at and how they're moving through and how we support them to move through that cycle and where we want them to spend most time. I'll talk about rolling with resistance, and I'll talk a little bit about ambivalence and how do we sit with clients in those moments. I'll give a case study because for me it's really helpful when we put things into a sort of real life scenario, so I'll give that for you. And Jane is the one I've spoken about before. Actually, I've spoken about Jane's case a couple of times when I've done this webinar for Genova, and it always gets such great response because people really understand it with this story. So I'm going to give that one to you again today. I'm then going to talk to you about how you actually start nudging the client to take ownership of their actions. This is a really key aspect in clinic because we as clinicians, we as practitioners, we often assume it's on us. If the client's not doing something, that's our fault, and it's not. We've really got to make sure that we create really healthy boundaries so that the client is the owner of these decisions and actually this whole relationship with us. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about how you might be able to become a certified health coach if that's something that at the end of today you're interested in doing, or maybe even you're here today because actually that's something you're really keen on doing. I've just glanced at the attendee numbers and they're still continuing to climb. So a huge thank you everyone for taking the time to be here today. So I'm Natalie. I am a registered nutritional therapist with mBANT. I am a functional medicine certified health coach. After I qualified as a nutritional therapist, the specialism around weight loss, type 2 diabetes, cardiometabolic health, I realised that actually I wasn't going to be able to help my clients in that space without being able to coach them through change, because nobody ends up as a type 2 diabetic overnight or after a bad holiday where they picked up a bug. People end up in that situation because of decades of behaviours. So for me, this was a really important qualification to have. So I think I'd only been up and running in clinic for 8 months before I then joined the IFM associated health coaching course and did a year to qualify. I'm a clinic director. I run the clinic Integral Wellness. I'm also a certified phlebotomist, and I coach and mentor other practitioners. I'll tell you a little bit about that at the end, but I coach within this realm as supporting practitioners with actually how to apply coach approach to some of their more challenging clients and sort of supporting them in that brainstorming action. And then also I am a CGM and blood sugar geek, so I mentor other practitioners around that cardiometabolic blood sugar health impact. And as you can see, I do a couple of radio and press interviews as well in my spare time. But I do run Integral Wellness. I have a clinic team. I'm really fortunate to have built a clinic team. I am thrilled that I love my job, and we do focus on that cardiometabolic health space. My passion is type 2 diabetes. I'm predisposed to type 2 diabetes. My granddad was type 2 diabetic. My parents are not, because we prevented it, but that's really my love and passion. But with a lot of this, we see, I mean, cardiometabolic health is everything from type 2 to insulin resistance to high blood pressure and cholesterol. We see a lot of it in perimenopause and menopause, because if you're not metabolically flexible, then menopause is a lot harder. We see a lot of estrogen dominance being linked with blood sugars as well. We see a lot of gut issues and gallbladder issues being linked to cardiometabolic health. The thyroid has a very close connection too. And then obviously what a lot of people come to us with, because they want the weight loss because it's external, they can see it, but actually there's a lot of other things to do. They come to us for weight loss, but they've got a lot of these other issues going on as well. And then we support with relationship with food as well, and that's mainly through that coaching aspect. So this coaching qualification has been a huge help for me to actually improve people's relationships with themselves, with food, with how they view their health, because of the tools that I've now got. So without further ado, what is the coach approach? I don't know if you've heard that phrase, the coach approach, but it's one that was definitely said quite a few more times in the years gone by than now. But the coach approach is really so different to what we were taught as practitioners. So when we are coaching someone, we are trying to help them to do what they already want to do. We're not trying to tell them what to do. We're trying to encourage their already seated desires. And to do that, we need to become 4 things. We need to get really curious. We need to get really curious about what's going on for them, why they even want to reach their goal, make these changes in the first place. We need to make sure we apply really clear and appropriate questioning, which I'll take you through in a minute, to help to claw out some of these deeper seated reasons as to why they're in front of us. We want to make sure it's really conversational. We want to be chatty with our audience. We want to make sure we're chatty with our clients in front of us. We want to make sure that we're really embedding a relationship so that we can support them, and we're hearing the nuance in what they're trying to achieve. And we want to apply some real humility to it as well. There is no point in us, whether you've got a coaching qualification or not, or whether you want to apply this heavily or not, there is no point us sitting here as health practitioners without humility, because I don't think any of us are perfect. I think we all have things that we know we should be doing, but we find difficult to do. So we have to make sure we apply humility to what we do. I sometimes find going out for a walk some days difficult, and yet it should be pretty easy, but there we are. So what coaching isn't, and this can be really hard to hear, because as nutritionists, nutritional therapists, health practitioners, we're taught to give advice. We're taught to show our expertise. We're taught that we should really be telling them what's going on and what to do, and we've got to own that hour consultation that we're with our clients. But that's not coaching. The coach approach is to not be the expert. The person in front of us is the expert of their lives. They know what's realistic, what's manageable, what's achievable, what matters to them. They know what's going to drive them to make change. They are the expert. We are not. As a coach, you wouldn't be giving advice. As a nutritional therapist, you can obviously give advice and apply advice based on what they've come to you for, but it's not about giving strict advice on how they need to change their lives. So you need to wake up at this time, and you need to have a glass of water at this time, and you need to make sure you wait for after your breakfast to have a coffee, and having all these demands and advice given on the client without actually opening up the conversation of whether that's doable. And actually the client needs to be doing most of the talking, because we shouldn't be. I'm going to be doing most of the talking today, obviously, but I hope for lots of questions. There normally has been, so please, any questions, drop them in the questions box. I will do most of the talking today, but in consultations, I really don't. So that's a really important part of hearing the client. So thinking about these open-ended questions, thinking about creating it more conversational. How do we apply curiosity? We are conversational if we want to apply curiosity. We want to make sure that the questions we're asking our clients are open-ended questions. The how, the what, the why, and the when. How do you feel about these changes that you're going to make? When we're putting a protocol together, there's no point in pulling a protocol together and just sending it to the client, walking away, pretending it didn't happen, and then in 2 weeks' time going, well, why didn't you do that? We need to ask them, these are the things that you've come to me to improve your energy levels. I've assessed your health. I've looked at your food diary. These are some changes that I need us to make. Have a little look through these. How do they feel to you? What's standing out to you? What looks like it's an easy change? What looks like it's a hard change? What scares you? What fills you with joy? We need to understand how these changes are making them feel, because that's going to tell us if they're going to do them or not. Understand why it would be challenging if somebody says, oh, drinking water is just so hard. I mean, it's not something I personally find hard. I've got a water bottle here. It's not something I personally find hard, but understanding why that person finds it challenging helps us to be better at guiding them through how they can overcome challenges. So really dig in, ask them questions, get curious. Where do they want to go first? Because if we say, I want you to fix your breakfast first, and actually they're much more motivated to work on their sleep, then we're heading already to a really stale area of change, because we're trying to get them to do something they're not massively motivated to do right now, and we're ignoring what they're really motivated to do. And also just finding out, how do we see what their current routine is, and rather than saying that's horrendous, there's so much change that needs to happen, we're going to do a complete makeover, actually understanding, how do we use your current structure of your day and a pace that suits you, start adapting it one by one or 3 items at a time, whatever suits that person, to fit into your current day. Because I doubt most people could suddenly wake up at 6 a.m, ignore their kids, quit their job, pretend they don't have a husband that expects dinner on the table when they get in, like all these things, whatever it is, there's no right or wrong in any of them, but it's not for us to suddenly assume that they can jam our protocol into their day and nothing else matters. So here's an example. As I said, for me, I'm a very kinesthetic and sort of real life learner. So here's an example of how I'm going to go through this, which is not using a coach approach. And then I'm going to take you through what a coach approach would look like. So something like drinking water, which I think is pretty easy to do. I have so many clients who find it hard. And if any of you are sitting there going, yeah, but there are apps that you can do and you could just put a post-it. Yeah, sure. But do you know what? So many of my clients just ignore the apps, because how many apps do we have on our phone that just drive us mad? So we just end up ignoring things. We've got to work out what works for them. So as a practitioner, I might say, I'd really like you to drink 2 litres of water a day. And the client says to me, oh God, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I keep trying. I'm always trying and I just don't know how. And I say, well, do you know what? You already have a coffee in the morning, so just drink 1 before your coffee. And why don't you drink 1 before your bed, so that bookends the day. And then I want you to take 1.2 litres around with you. There are bottles that are 1.2 litres. Carry it around with you all day and just sip it throughout the day. And the client said, well, I just don't think I'm going to remember my bottle. I always lose bottles. I'm likely to lose this one. And I persist. I just say, well, put it in your bag, put a reminder on your phone, get one of those apps, just make it a priority. Probably one of the worst sentences I've ever heard. Make it a priority. It's not for us to tell them what they should prioritize. They've got to decide. The client would naturally start getting upset at this point. They might say to me, oh, it's really heavy to carry around. Look, I carry around a 2 litre bottle of water, or 2.2, and I'm cool with that. I like carrying heavy things, so I see it as weightlifting. But the client might find that really, most of my clients think I'm mad. So they might say, that's really heavy for me to carry around all day, and I'm going to go to the loo all the time. How many times do we hear that? I'm going to go to the loo all the time. They are completely put off at this point, but I keep going. Your body's going to adjust to the new volume of water. Don't worry about it. It might be heavy, but it's a really good habit to get into. And it's something you just need to do. So the client just gets a bit despondent, just says, okay, I'll try. They're desperate to end this conversation. But actually, the results are not going to happen off the back of that. The client's going to be really disheartened about the whole process, and the relationship you're trying to build with the client is actually going backwards, not forwards. So instead, we want to apply something slightly different. Same sort of start to the conversation. Need you to drink 2 litres of water a day? I don't know how I'm going to do that. Okay, so you have lots of teas, or you have a couple of coffees in the morning. So at what point do you currently navigate around drinking water and things like that? And the client might say, well, I like to have one with every meal. That's just sort of a bit of a habit that I'm into. And I'll have a glass of my supplements naturally to wash them down. But I love my cup of tea, so I don't really drink much else. So I've totally seen that with a cup of tea, we might be able to attach a new habit to that. So I open up that conversation. Where could you see fitting in an extra glass into your day? I can already see where it might be possible, but it's not for me to tell the client that. It's not for me to say, well, have one with a cup of tea. Where do they think it might fit into their day? Well, I could have a glass before my first cup of tea. They might come out with that. They might say, well, the mugs at work are right next to the glasses, so I could have a glass of water with every mug of tea at work. Brilliant, nice idea. Affirm the fact that they've thought of something for themselves that's going to work. How do you think you're going to remember that? And then they might roll into what they're going to do. They'll put a cup out the night before, or they'll move the glasses and mugs next to each other. And again, affirm it. Brilliant plan, great idea. What if you forget? How might you remind yourself? Think about a plan B. You could call it a plan B, I sometimes do, but think about a plan B. How might you remind yourself? And they might say, I need a Post-it note, or I might just put an alarm on my phone in the morning because I know I need to be downstairs by 7 o'clock. So I might put an alarm on my phone that 7 o'clock says water. Wonderful. And then ask them, open up the question again. Okay, brilliant. You've already established where you're going to get one glass of water in. Where could you possibly fit one more glass of water in? Let them lean into that. Let them give you another example of where they might fit that in. Affirm that, because they're already pairing an existing habit with a new one. And that's going to be the best way to form habits. And if they keep doing that, start with 2. You might want to get them to 2 litres or 1.5 litres, but they've just added 2 glasses of water in. They're going to feel really good about that. They've told you that they could think it's going to be easy. They've decided how they're going to do it. Start there. Affirm them with that. And then when you come back to them 2 days later, or sorry, 2 weeks later, you might find that your client's done that with ease. It was actually easier than they thought, and they're starting to feel really positive about their ability to make change. That's what you need to start. You need to get in some really simple, quick wins so that they start feeling like they're going to get results. And I've had people, particularly in the older generation, who might be struggling to get more than 1 glass of water down. And if we literally start with adding in 1 more glass of water, before I know it, they're saying to me, oh, I'm drinking 6 glasses of water. I'm actually really enjoying it. I didn't have to push for 6 glasses straight away. They led it the whole way because they used this sort of approach. So I mentioned that change behavior and cycling and recycling of this, where am I at, where's the resistance, comes in the form of this, well, what we would call is a cycle. And this, I think, is one of the most fundamental parts of understanding the change model, understanding how to coach clients, understanding whereabouts they're at. So let's have a look at it in this scenario. And I think you're probably going to know, as I said to you before, you're going to know people and at which stages that they're at as well. So you will tend to enter, everyone enters at pre-contemplation stage. You know, you're never going to buy a house and go, you might not just wake up in the morning and go, I'm buying that house, put the money down and move on. You're going to think, quite tempted to buy a house. And then all the other feelings are going to come up, and then you might go into research, and then you might go into speaking to the bank manager, and then you might go into mortgages. You have to go through stages. And this is exactly the same in making changes that are healthy for us and are to do with everyday life, like food and drink and movement. So you'll enter at pre-contemplation, and at this stage you are potentially, especially when it comes to health, you're not particularly aware of negative behaviours that you see as a problem. At pre-contemplation, you're not even contemplating it. So you might be absorbing information around you. You might be sitting in a room and other people are having a conversation about how much sugar people eat. And you might be someone who eats a lot of sugar, or your client might be someone who eats a lot of sugar. And they're happy to have that be in that conversation, but they're not associating that behavior to themselves. They don't see that as a connection to themselves. You might, but they don't. And so they tend to maybe absorb information, but they don't have a desire to make any change at this point. So we can often see this in clinic, potentially where a partner might bring their partner into clinic and say, look, I really want you to help my wife. I really want you to help my husband. I really want you to help my teenage child. And that person that they want you to help is in pre-contemplation. They're like, I don't even understand why I'm here. I'm fine. This is my husband. He thinks he's perfect. So I'm sure we all know someone in our lives where we have a different opinion, but they're not there yet. And then you've got the contemplation stage. And at this stage, people start to become aware of the problems that are going on, of the consequences of their actions. They're not yet ready to change any of that, but they might start to accept that, yeah, I probably do have one too many sugars in my tea. Yeah, I probably could avoid the sausage rolls at the weekend, but they're not going to change it yet. Now, somebody might stay in contemplation zone, aware of their behaviors, but not interested in changing for the rest of their lives. There is no time limit on you'll be here for 2 months and then you'll move on. There's none of that in this cycle at any stage. You could be very aware of your behavior, but not willing to change it forevermore. You could wake up tomorrow and decide, a lot of people wake up on New Year's Day, don't they, and decide today's the day we change. Have they really contemplated enough to actually change? That's to be seen. But this can be one of those how long is a piece of strings moments. And then you'll move into determination or preparation stage. And this stage is actually really important. If you go straight from contemplation into action, which a lot of people do, particularly at this time of year, where they go, oh, I really want to lose weight. Oh, look, Jane's joining the gym, or Jane's joining Swimming World. I'm off with Jane. They've not really thought about it. They've not really prepared. They've not really sat on the research and got determined about it. And you'll find then action is really short-lived. And that's what we're going to see a lot from now until March. And I think then we see it again in the summer because of summer holidays and all that lovely joy. So when we are in determination and preparation phase, we do that research. We might start having a discovery call with people. This is at the stage that you might get people in contemplation, although it's quite rare. You're more likely to get people who are in preparation. They know that they're ready to make change. They're just not quite sure when. If they're more in determination at this stage, then they might also know when. And they're ready to move into action at some point in the near future. Again, we don't know when. So these are probably your discovery call people. And what you won't necessarily be able to understand on a discovery call is whether they're ready to take action or whether they are sitting in preparation for a little bit longer. That might be why some people can't make a decision on the call and they need to go away and think about it. And I really don't like the idea, and I know this is taught sometimes in some business coaches, is that if they don't say yes on the phone straight away, then they're clearly not ready. Well, yeah, absolutely correct. They're not in action stage. And that's totally okay. That's not for us to judge. That's not for us to suddenly bin them off, never speak to them again. People, especially nowadays, what the research is telling us is that people need around 21 touch points with a service in order to decide that they're going to spend money on that service. People are much more fussy than they were several years ago. Several years ago, people would buy quite readily. People are much more research focused. They spend a lot more time contemplating around where they're actually going to spend money. So give people that space to do so and be there for them and follow up. Never leave your leads. I'm sure Karen told you that last week. And then you'll move into action stage. Now, these are the people that say yes, or these are the people that come back. We've actually this is a great example. We actually just converted a client this week in clinic who I spoke to the first part of last year, maybe February, March last year, I spoke to them. And they came back to me end of November, beginning of December, and said, I'd really like to have a chat first thing in the new year. I'm ready to move forward. Now, that's totally fine. That's where these people sit in determination for as long as they need to. Now they're ready to take action. And these are the people that are either ready to take action straight away, or they hang around in your email list for a couple of years. I've just had that as well. I've just signed a client who said she's been in my email list for 2 years. I worked with a client in the summer who heard me on the radio back in 2020 and then has followed me ever since. You know, don't ignore these people who are on your email list or are sitting in your social medias. They're watching. So when they're ready to take action, then they're ready to become your clients, then they're ready to start making changes. But how they're choosing to make change still needs that coach approach. They still need to be the ones that take their own action. And what we need to find is what their motivators are. And I'll talk to you about that in the next slide. But the two other phases that we've got is a relapse and a maintenance phase. And these can come in either order. Sometimes people do the action phase and then they sit in maintenance. They've made the changes, they're happy with it. It feels like a new routine and a habit. And then they sit in maintenance and the benefits and the positives keep them going. But maybe something throws a curveball a family member passes away, they suddenly change homes, they move jobs, they become a mum, they become a dad, and suddenly that whole scenario changes and they relapse. Now, you can move through action, relapse, maintenance in any order and at all different speeds. And we need to be prepared to see that in our clients and to offer them support in those phases too. But what we do have to understand with any client that comes to us in action stage, or even if we see them researching and maybe they're researching and they're asking us a lot of questions, we've got to really understand, why are they here? What's driving them? Because there can be two different drivers and two different motivators, and they will end up with two different outcomes of clients. And I'm sure we can recognize this in ourselves as well as in our clients as well. And these are intrinsic and extrinsic motivating factors. Now, if we have intrinsic motivators, things that matter to us, things that align with our values, that align with our purpose, that we are passionate about, that we find fun in, then we're much more willing to do something. I worked for 10 years in financial technology. If you've got a mobile banking app, you are very welcome. I worked for that company. That was the start of my career in the City of London. But am I passionate about banking apps? Am I passionate about the back-end technology of what goes on in financial institutions? Absolutely not. It was quite interesting, fast-paced, very well-paid environment. Yeah, cool. I could have moments where I thought, oh yeah, this is quite fun, but I wasn't deeply passionate about it. It did not align with my values. I now do a job as a nutritionist where it aligns with most of my values, where I have a mission to help people avoid and reverse type 2 diabetes, because I'm at risk of type 2 diabetes and it's in my family and I can see the devastation that it causes. Every day I wake up and I live in alignment with my values, and then I get to go to work and help people do that. I am intrinsically motivated to turn up at work. I'm still going to have days where I prefer to sit on the sofa and read a book, but the intrinsic motivation is what takes over most of me. That's what we need to make sure our clients are coming to us with. Why does it matter to them that they're losing weight? And this is where weight loss is often very superficial and very surface level. But I have a lot of people come to me to lose weight. Why does it matter that you lose weight? And what we're trying to get out of them is that it matters to me because, and I've had this very real scenario, I can't play with my 3-year-old son. He's so energetic and he wants to climb all over the climbing frames and run around and kick a football, and I can't keep up with him. I'm exhausted, I'm panting, I don't have the breath. I really need to lose weight because of this. Now that is what we want our clients to say. Not exactly that, but an example of that, where you can really see how it's going to change and impact their everyday lives. I want to avoid type 2 diabetes because I watched my grandfather go through type 2 diabetes and have gout as well. And in the end, he ended up getting, when he was less mobile, he ended up with bed sores, and then they couldn't heal because of his diabetes, and he had high blood pressure. And I just watched this poor man not live a life to his full purpose because of too much sugar in his blood. And I don't want that for me, because I want to live a life where I'm climbing mountains and, you know, in my garden, and I'm full of zest for life and energy. That's a really aligned motivation. We need to pull this out of our clients, because what we don't want to hear are these extrinsic factors. Well, I really want to lose some weight because, you know, I'm going on holiday and all my friends are really slim and I'm just going to feel like the odd one out. No, not good enough. That is not going to carry you over the hard times. Your friends' body images and what you think of them is not going to carry you over the tough times ahead of making changes. It's not deep enough. Why does it matter to you? What's going on inside of you? Oh, my wife says, this is my husband actually, oh, well, my wife just says that I need to take these supplements because they're good for me, but I just don't really get it. So guess what? I'm not going to take the supplements. And I'm sure many of you have a partner or a child or a family member who you've said, take these supplements, and they're not going to do it because they actually haven't got any real core reason as to why they should. Some people are very good and they just crack on. Most people don't. The other thing we really have to look out for are these clients who want to please us. So they come to us with a purpose, they come to us with a reason, and then in the end, the relationship evolves, and what the client tries to do is please the practitioner. Oh yeah, I did what you said, yeah. And we can often feed into that as well. So we need to be careful with our language and make sure it's very ownership of the client, which I'll talk to you about at the end, and make sure that we are keeping at the forefront their reasons for doing things, because it's not about us. Now, you might find that some of your clients are resistant and some of your clients are ambivalent. And you'll find that we are exactly these two things as well in areas of our life. So resistance is what happens when we're pushing for that change and the client's not ready to do so, which I've already given you an example of. And ambivalence is when a client feels like they want to make a change. I really want to start cooking from scratch and spending more time in the kitchen and cooking nourishing meals, but I really want to actually also just spend some time with my kids, but I care about my kids and I want them to eat really well, so I need to be in the kitchen, but then they're only young ones, so I actually want to be in the lounge playing with them. They're just sitting on the fence, arguing both sides of the point. That's ambivalence. And we need to have the opportunity of being able to use the right language to roll with any resistance, and also sit with them in that moment of, I'm not sure. I really don't know which road to take. It's not for us to say to them, well, I'm your nutritionist and I say you should go and get in the kitchen and cook. That's not their motivating point. That's coming from us. So this is a massive topic. Ambivalence and resistance is huge. And actually, really, it took me probably the whole year of training to be a coach to really understand it and learn it. And actually, I still have to practice it quite heavily now. So I can't go into this in too much detail in the time we've got. But when these moments arise, with your clients, I want you to think about these few things, which is to make sure that you express empathy and actually affirm and validate that you understand why they're finding something hard, and that you can appreciate. Sometimes it's not a case of understanding, maybe it is, but it's appreciating that this is difficult for them. You can hear it in their voice, you can see it in the tension in their face. It makes sense as they're talking about it. Affirm them. We often have a lot of clients who don't feel heard or seen with the healthcare that they've had up to date. And actually, I've had a recent example of this where I've sat in a consultation in the NHS and I was trying to explain my side of the story and my frustrations, and the words that I received were, I understand, and then she quickly moved on. And I understand did not mean she really understood. It meant I need to move on. I've got a time to keep. So the easiest way is to tell you that I understand and then to keep moving the consultation forwards. Let's not do that with our clients. Let's really hear them. Also try and I spy if there's any discrepancy in what they're saying. So if they come to you with certain goals and values that you're going to really help to use to motivate them with change, and that they're going to be using to motivate them, if their behaviors and their values don't align, have an open conversation with them about it. You know, I heard you say to me last week that this really matters to you because of this reason, but actually your behavior is really contradictory to that. So let's just talk about it for a minute. How do you feel about the fact your behavior doesn't align with your values? What's going on there? Don't expect to have the answers for them. They're the only ones that are going to have the answer, but just highlight to them and have that opportunity to develop some discrepancy around what the client's saying. Support some self-efficacy. So be positive. Don't obviously be positive to a point it's patronizing and irritating, but show some way of expressing that the client has already shown their ability to make change. And as I said, if you can get some quick wins in, then the client has already shown that they can make change, and you can leverage that to say, look, well, you did it with the water and you didn't expect to be able to. I think, you know, what's to say you can't do it again? And then have that opportunity to sit with that resistance. Really consider about the questions that you need to ask to try and uncover why they're resistant about it. The first answer that anyone gives us is a superficial answer. And the word fine and okay also doesn't mean anything. You have these people that just go, yeah, that's fine. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. So really ask enough questions to peel away the layers and try and work out what's going on in their life. So Jane, case study on Jane is, let me just check time. Gosh, I always able to speak, don't I? Case study on Jane. Jane came to me. She was a mother. She was divorced. She had sadly lost her 16-year-old daughter from I'm going to call it a freak heart attack because they were her words. She had a bigger body size, and she was at risk of cardiovascular disease. She was currently watching her father struggle with cardiovascular disease, and she knew she was at risk, but she also knew she was hiding from it. So we started talking about the types of changes that Jane wanted to make. And one thing that kept coming up and that we sat with and it literally took the whole consultation to sit with her with this. And don't be scared of doing that as well. Don't be scared of taking up the consultation by sitting with one problem and coaching them through that problem. Because if you try and move on too quickly, you're going to end up coming back to it all the time anyway and wasting time. So allow yourself to sit with it. And she said to me one day, I just want to be one of those people that just gets up in the morning and goes for a walk. I really think that would really help me. I was like, okay, fine. So we left it as sort of part of the protocol, but it wasn't a main focus. It was just something that she knew she wanted to do, so maybe she'd do it. But we had a couple of key things to focus on first that she was really keen to get done. Then in a few weeks' time, as I say, we sat there with this because it just wasn't happening. And I asked her to walk me through her routine, what was actually going on for her in the morning, so we could sort of establish what the morning routine was like, and even was a walk possible. So she walked me through her routine. I wake up, I have a shower, I wash my hair, I brush my teeth, I get dressed, I blow dry my hair, I go downstairs, I have my tea and my breakfast, I clean up, I then go to work. Okay, great. At what point do you want to go for the walk? She's like, I want to get up and go out for a walk, come back, have a shower. Okay, right. Why do you want it to be in that order? She's like, I just think that would be the right thing to do for the day. I was like, well, why? You can go for a walk at any time of the day. Why does that time of day really matter to you? She said, well, my sister lives in Australia. She's lovely and slim. My sister lives in Australia, and she says that everyone gets up at 5 a.m. in Australia and goes for a walk. And she'd completely associated sister, slim, Australia, slim people, healthy people must get up at 5 a.m. and go for a walk. That's the only way to do it. So she was really trying to jam into her routine something that didn't actually matter to her and didn't actually sit within her as a motivator. It was just a viewpoint. It was an extrinsic factor, a viewpoint that she had of something else, which isn't really true, is it? I'm sure there's lots of people in Australia who go out for a walk at lunchtime or in the evening, just what she'd heard through her sister and an opinion she was creating. So I was like, right, okay, let's scrap that. Let's scrap sister. Let's scrap what other people do. We need to work out what Jane needs to do. Let's walk through your routine again and give it to me in detail, and then you tell me where it feels more natural as you're walking it through visually in your head. Where does it feel more natural to go out for a walk? And do you know what? It felt more natural to go out for a walk after she'd had breakfast. Before she'd cleaned up, because she thought if she cleaned up, she'd then end up in work mode. But she wanted to have a cup of tea, eat breakfast, and then go outside for a walk and digest it. But she's like, I think that feels really good. And you know what? From that moment onwards, I saw Jane 3 weeks later. She walked every single day. I'd seen her for about 5 weeks beforehand, 6 weeks beforehand. And we had this, as I say, not a priority, but just sitting there as something that she wanted to do. And she just thought she could get on with it herself. Didn't walk at all for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. We really worked out where it needed to sit into her day. That actually worked for her. And she did it every day for 3 weeks. That's the power of sitting with the coach approach. So that's one example. Now, if you're sitting in clinic and you know that you need to help your clients to actually take ownership of these actions in this way, and you feel like everything at the moment you're holding it is on you, have a think about adopting this coach approach, but also have a think about adopting a way of getting your clients to own the changes that you're encouraging them to make and that they are leaning into making, that they're also saying yes they want to make. Okay, you want to start drinking more water. When are you going to start? Now, the moment someone says, I had a client say this to me before Christmas, on Monday. I said, why on Monday? And they said, I've just got food in the cupboard I want to eat before Monday. And I was like, but how does that match your goals? The fact that you've eaten it means you've eaten it, whether it's Monday or Tuesday or next week, you're still going to eat it. And that has no correlation to the goals you've just told me you want to do at all. I had to really call them out. So when do you want to start? I want to start drinking more water. I'm going to start today. By the way, Jane did start that day when she said she wanted to go out for a walk. I said, well, I know it's not the morning, but what have you got left over to do today? She said, I do need to pop to the post office. She said, I normally drive. I said, can you walk? She said, very easily. I said, you're going to walk today, aren't you? She said, yes, I am. So when are you going to start? How quickly can you get started? Because that also tells you if they've got enough of a motivating factor to get them started. If it's a case of, well, the yoga class isn't until Tuesday, so I can't start till Tuesday, no worries. Have you got your yoga outfit sorted? Have you got your mat out? Is it all put in a bag? Is it ready to go? Do you need to put it in the boot so it's done? Do you need to pay for the session? Do you need to go and check out the venue? Do you need to know where to park? You can do all that before you start. Let's get them going if it's really what they want to do. Work out if there are any challenges and barriers that might arrive. Ask them to predict them. You know, if you want to do water starting today, okay, how are you going to do it? I'm just going to go and get a glass and fill it up. Okay, what issues do you see with that? Are there any challenges or issues you might see with that? Well, when the glass runs out, I'm probably just going to sit there with an empty glass for hours. Okay, so what do you need to do? They might say 2 glasses, they might say a bottle, they might say I'm going to put a note in my diary and it's going to tell me to get up and get another glass. Like, ask them how, as I say, how are you going to tackle it? That's the example I've just given. What would a plan B look like? Assume that you might need a plan B if plan A falls away. If you don't get up and go for a walk straight away, have you got a plan B? Is there another alternative? Mornings sometimes don't work the way you want to work. Mine don't. I have a cold plunge outside. I love it. Some mornings I don't get an opportunity to go in the cold plunge, like today. So what am I going to do instead? After this webinar, I'm going to go in the cold plunge. My plan B is that I just do it in the afternoon and I make a point of doing it before the sun goes down. Pretty short window these days. How will you know when you've achieved it? How will you know that you've done what you say you're going to do? Otherwise, you might just flittle around. Get them to really cement something. How do you need to be kept accountable? Is it somebody else? Is it reminders or post-it notes? Is it an app on your phone? Do you need to tell people? Like, how is it going to help you? Is it us? Do we need to ping you a message every day with a water droplet emoji just to remind you? What do you need? How are you going to feel when you do this? Let's just say in 2 weeks' time when we see each other again, you've done this. You've drunk 2 litres of water every day. You've been to yoga 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks. How are you going to feel? Get them to really feel that feeling so they're more motivated to do it because they're going to go and chase that feeling. Feelings keep us going. And then another one which comes out in coaching is how will you celebrate? This is an odd one. Now, I trained with IFM Associated Company, and obviously it's American. They love to celebrate. We're not really the same as Brits. So one of the examples they gave to me in training was that you'd look in the mirror and you give yourself like a, yo, you're so good sort of thing. It's too American for us. And I said to them, if you ever work with a Brit, don't ever recommend that because we're not going to do it. It's not who we are. You probably shouldn't recommend it across Europe. It's not who we are. But I might say, do you know what? One of my personal ones. I've been suffering with a shoulder injury for most of last year and I love weightlifting, but it really put me off weightlifting. I was just so scared about it getting worse until I had an MRI on my spine to know that my spine's okay, we're all good. So I'm going to go back to the gym. And if I go back to the gym and if I do my 3 times a week weightlifting until the end of March, so I do my 12 weeks, I'm allowed to go and buy myself a pair of Lululemon leggings. Lululemon leggings. Can't even get the brand right. Those ones. I'm going to go and buy myself a pair. That's my celebration. That's my reward because I love those leggings, but they're not cheap. And at the moment, I'm not going to the gym because I'm in a funk with my shoulder. How do I get myself out of a funk? I give myself a reason, something I'm going to celebrate. How am I going to feel? Great. I love lifting weights. I'm going to feel strong again. My muscle mass is going to come back. Then I get a pair of leggings. So think about that. How are they going to celebrate? And you don't have to be buying something. Certainly don't have to be treating ourselves with food. Or I'm going to go and get myself a glass of wine. Like, try and get them out of that habit. But do you know, I'm going to take myself off to a spa for the day. Do you know, I'm going to actually have a bubble bath and I'm going to lock myself away with a bubble bath for 2 hours and read my book. I'm going to have an extra cup of coffee on a Sunday morning and read my book for a bit longer. Any of these small things that actually tell us that we're really looking after ourselves. And don't forget to ask those questions that encourage these conversations. Make sure you use the term you and not we. I definitely default into this sometimes where I say, look, we're going to see how you get on. No. Look, you see how you get on. You come back and tell me and feedback to me. It's their journey and their success, so we need them to own it. So make sure you're using the right language. As I've said throughout, make sure you actually affirm and validate some of their feelings and the approach that you're taking. Keep that positivity in there and really make sure they feel heard. And then don't forget, as much as I've used a coach approach example here, don't forget that you are the nutritionist. So you're still the one that says, these are the protocol points that we need to work through. I often pull up 10, 12 different things that I know someone needs to work through, but I let them navigate the order that they want to work through them, because that's up to them. I know they need to do these 12 things, but it's up to them where they start and where they finish. You also might be at a point where you have to say, okay, look, you've done some great work. You've done these 3 things and it's brilliant. We're stuck at doing this next thing, and actually this next thing is in this order that we need to go in because of whatever's going on with them. This is next. We can't skip ahead. So let's work out what's going on that's making this challenging, because we're going to struggle to get you results if we don't tackle this, and I think we're going to need to tackle this now. It's okay for us to bring a problem to the forefront because we know that their results are going to slow down if they don't. But it's for us to do it with the right curiosity, with the right humility, with the right questions, and with the right validation of their feelings. So if I've tempted you to become a health coach, oh goodness me, there we go, then let's have a think about where you can go for this. So the coaching industry is coming under a lot more scrutiny. I think our whole industry is going to become under a lot more scrutiny going forwards, and I think we're going to need to really think about where we invest and spend money to get the qualifications that we need. That said, if you want to crack on without because you're going to use books to enable you to use these skills, but you're not going to say you're a health coach, that's also totally okay. And I've got some books for you if you cannot bear any more training. So I also think there is a point where you go, I actually don't need to have another title, I just need to have a couple of extra skills. I think there's a lot to say in that. But if you do want to get qualified, do go and have a look at the UK and International Health Coaching Association. They show their approved training programs. That's like a regulatory body. I don't belong to it. I've decided I only need to belong to so many regulatory bodies. So I prioritize nutritional therapy and phlebotomy. But health coaching does have its own professional body. So go and have a look at that link there to see what's approved. There's a couple of them that I've put there. I can only say the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy was brilliant because that's what I did. However, I did do it, I started doing that in 2021. So, and I finished in 2022. I couldn't tell you what it's like now. I know the price has gone up and I actually think it is a little bit too expensive in my opinion, but I will leave you to make your own decisions. But there are some others there which come up on those approved training programs you might want to check out. And then if you think that I am not up for another qualification, I totally get you, totally. But you might want to learn a couple of skills from these books. And I've got 3 out of 4 of these books. This book, the Wellness Coaches one, this I think I used most heavily when I was studying. As I was reading it through, it was literally mirroring everything I was learning and it was teaching me a lot. So for me, this is top 4, the one to have. This one I actually bought very unused. Look at it, it's so pristine. This one I actually bought when I was a manager in marketing. I was a senior marketing manager in corporate, and I bought this to help me to lead my team. But I have more thumbed it than anything else, but I've got it because I actually think the writer is great. And then this is another one which I had to read during my studies and qualification. I think it's very repetitive. You don't necessarily have to buy this. I buy books secondhand these days, so I don't mind, but you don't necessarily have to buy this one. You could actually have a look at BJ Fogg, that is his name, on YouTube, because it really is about attaching new habits to existing habits. If you want to floss, do it when you're brushing your teeth, because you're already in the bathroom with your toothbrush and the floss can live next to it. If you want to have a glass of water, drink it while the kettle's boiling for your beloved cup of coffee or cup of tea. It's about attaching things. So it does get repetitive, but he has got some great illustrations and he does do a lot of whiteboard work for how to improve habits. So I quite like it. Atomic Habits is another one which I've listened to on audiobook, and that also can be really helpful. It's a nice one to get clients to read as well. Get them to own their habits by reading some of these books too. More the habit ones, not the coaching ones. So thank you for being with me for so long. I really appreciate it. We're coming up to time now, but I had this question when I presented live at the Genova event at the end of last year, so I just wanted to make sure I covered it off. If you're wondering how I can help you, because I know Karen obviously illustrated how she can help last week, and the next two speakers will do the same. I'm a little bit different because I'm just like you. I'm running a clinic. I am a nutritional therapist. I am well and truly embedded in practice, but I do also help with mentoring, with helping if you have got difficult clients, if you need to, either you're training to be a coach or you've decided to read the books and learn on the go, then I do mentoring to help you with certain clients, to unpick scenarios, to give you questions to ask, to walk you through those challenging moments. I do that with my team naturally, and I offer that out as well. I also, because of my specialism in cardiometabolic health, I do offer practitioner support specifically on blood sugars, on CGM data, on cardiometabolic health, to help people to interpret the new data that is coming out from these continuous glucose monitors that people are wearing, and to help them to actually create a roadmap for clients to be successful in this particular area of health. And on that note, I ran a webinar at the end of last year, which is still available on demand, which helped you if you do want to use CGMs with clients in clinic. It was a webinar solely focused on that, looking at how you learn to read the data, how you can use a practitioner portal to use the data, what devices are available, and certain red flags to look out for as well, because not everybody should be using CGMs. And so a huge thank you for listening, a huge thank you to over 100 of you who are still here. I really appreciate your time. This is the QR code for that webinar. If you do want to watch it on demand, just scan that QR code or go to that URL there, the practitioners.integralwellness.co.uk link, and you can get it there. And if you are interested in any mentoring support, that is my email address, and you are more than welcome to email me. Thank you again. I hope that was helpful.